For 5 long years I lived under the crushing belief that my body had failed me. Each month I'd stare at one-line pregnancy tests with trembling hands, my heart silently screaming. The bathroom would fill with the smell of bleach, desperation, and shame as I hid another failed attempt from my husband, Caleb. I felt like a broken woman. "You have to relax, Mia," he would whisper, rubbing my back with forced sympathy. "These things take time." But it didn't take time. It took everything else. My health, my self-worth, our savings, drained into hormone injections, failed IVF rounds, and hollow consultations that ended with pitying eyes and clipped advice. So I held on. For us. For the dream of becoming a mother. But Caleb held on for something else entirely. The morning it all began to crack, I found a baby onesie tucked between our sheets. It was pink. Brand new. And it didn't belong to me. I hadn't told anyone yet, but my doctor had just confirmed my uterus couldn't carry to term. I was still mourning that loss in silence, still building the courage to tell Caleb. I hadn't bought a thing. Not even a sock. "So where did this onesie come from?" "Must have been a mistake," Caleb said when I confronted him. "A friend at work. Maybe I left it in my bag." But something in his eyes flickered. Like the moment before a candle snuffs out, just long enough to sense the darkness behind it. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. Because if I didn't, then the world I'd sacrificed everything to build would begin to crumble. But the universe doesn't let lies sit still for long. 3 weeks later he came home holding a newborn baby girl. I was in the kitchen heating tea for my endometriosis pain, when the door burst open and there he stood, smiling, glowing like some messed up fairy tale prince. He said, "Her name is Ivy. She's ours." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I found a surrogate," he beamed. "An anonymous donor. Everything's been taken care of. This is our daughter." I dropped the teacup. It shattered at my feet. "What do you mean you found a surrogate? Without telling me?" "You've been through enough," he said quickly. "I wanted to surprise you. I did it for us. Baby." In his arms. No paperwork. No prior discussion. No warning. Nothing added up. And yet, there she was. Small. Warm. Breathing. My empty arms trembled. I held Ivy that night, cradling her carefully like something that wasn't quite mine. I told myself over and over, "She's yours now. Just be grateful." But in the back of my mind something itched. Something screamed. How could a man who wouldn't sit through a single fertility appointment secretly arrange an entire surrogacy? And why did Ivy look just like him? That night I didn't sleep. I stayed up scrolling through his emails, searching through drawers, even checking the bathroom trash for medication wrappers. What I found was worse than I imagined. A crumpled photo of Caleb shirtless, holding a visibly pregnant woman I'd never seen before. And behind them, pink balloons. My entire body went cold. He hadn't found a surrogate. He had a mistress. He got her pregnant. And now he wanted me to raise their baby, as if I were just some empty vessel. A placeholder. A desperate, childless wife willing to play mommy to his lie. I sat there holding Ivy, crying silently into her blanket. I wasn't broken. He was. And I was about to make him regret ever thinking I could be replaced. Caleb underestimated me. That was his first mistake. He thought I was so broken, so starved for motherhood, that I'd accept anything, even his betrayal, if it came swaddled in a pink blanket. And for one fleeting moment I almost did. I held Ivy and whispered lullabies into her soft hair, pretending, just for a second, that she was mine. That I had carried her, birthed her, earned her. But that illusion shattered each time Caleb touched her. Each time he looked at her with that smug, proud smirk, like a man who had beaten the system and gifted me what I couldn't give myself. He wanted praise. He wanted forgiveness. He wanted me to be grateful. Instead I began planning. The next day I played the role of the loving wife. I acted amazed. I took photos of Ivy, cooed at her, even posted a carefully crafted picture online. "Welcome to the world, baby girl. Mommy and Daddy love you so much." Caleb ate it up. He believed every word. But behind the smile I was already building a case. First I contacted a lawyer friend anonymously. Asked what legal steps were required to challenge custody of a child who was not legally adopted nor registered under my name. The answer chilled me. Technically, Ivy wasn't mine at all. Not even a little. No surrogate contract. No custody filings. No DNA test filed. Just a man handing me a baby like a gift. Caleb had no legal backing. And he hadn't even filed a birth certificate yet. That meant there was still time to expose everything. But I needed proof. So I turned my attention to the woman in the photo. Her face haunted me, soft features, a tired smile, and eyes that looked just as hollow as mine had once felt. I reverse searched the photo and landed on her Facebook. Her name was Taylor. Single. 28. A bartender in a nearby city. And most importantly, 6 months ago she'd posted a cryptic status. Some men will sell you a dream and leave you holding the reality. Her page was filled with selfies of her growing bump, captioned, "Our miracle, finally a family, can't wait to meet her." Every time I scrolled I felt more nauseous. He had promised her everything. He had promised me everything. And he had destroyed us both. But what stood out most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the timeline. Taylor's due date was before Caleb claimed he found a surrogate. Which meant the baby wasn't born through any arrangement. This wasn't a plan. It was a cover-up. A panic move. And I was his convenient solution. That night I asked Caleb as sweetly as possible, "Did the surrogate sign over the rights? Do we have a birth certificate yet?" He hesitated. "Well, it's still being processed. There's a delay. You know how the system is." That was line number 2. And it would be his last. I waited until he fell asleep, snoring beside me like a man with no conscience. Then I took Ivy's pacifier, just enough DNA, and slipped it into a sterile bag from my IVF kit. I mailed it to a private paternity lab, along with a toothbrush I'd plucked from Caleb's drawer. 3 days later the results came. 99.9% match. Caleb was the father. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking. Not because I was surprised, but because it was real now. No more pretending. No more wishing it was a nightmare I'd wake from. He'd created a child behind my back, and tried to pawn her off as mine, thinking my womb was all I was worth. But I wasn't done. Because something about Taylor's post still bothered me. Why had she suddenly stopped posting about the baby? Why had she gone radio silent the moment Ivy was born? And then, scrolling one last time, I found it. A photo of Taylor alone with no baby in sight. Captioned, "Some choices aren't really choices when your heart is being held hostage." I felt sick. Did Caleb threaten her? Bribe her? Lie to her too? I had to know. So I messaged her. A simple line. "You don't know me. But I think we've both been lied to. I'm holding your daughter right now." I didn't expect a reply. But 3 minutes later she wrote back. "Oh my God. He told me she was going to a real family. That I couldn't raise her alone. I didn't know it was you." My heart dropped. He had manipulated her. Used my infertility, my grief, my desperation, to trick another woman into handing over her child. Caleb didn't just betray me. He stole. He lied. He played God. And now it was time for the reckoning. I stared at Taylor's message for a long time. He told me she was going to a real family. A real family. Like I was just some desperate placeholder. Like my heartbreak was a convenient excuse to dispose of someone else's burden. But that wasn't even the worst part. It was what she said next. "He told me you were too fragile to know the truth. That you'd lost a baby. That you were mentally unstable." I dropped my phone. All this time I thought Caleb saw me as strong. Resilient. Worthy of love even if my body couldn't give him a child. But no. To him I was a liability. A fragile prop in his perfect daddy fantasy. The grieving wife he could gaslight into raising his affair child. I picked up the phone and messaged Taylor again. "I need to see you. In person. For her sake and ours." She replied within minutes. We agreed to meet the next day in a coffee shop far from our neighborhood. I arranged for my cousin to babysit Ivy. Caleb didn't even ask where I was going. He was too busy beaming over the baby he thought had sealed my silence. That smug bastard. When I walked into the cafe I almost didn't recognize her. Taylor looked thinner, tired, with hollow cheeks and eyes that carried months of guilt. She stood when she saw me. I'm so sorry, she blurted before I could even sit. He said you were okay with it. That it was arranged. That. I held up my hand. You don't have to explain. I was lied to too. We talked for hours. I learned everything. They had been seeing each other for over a year. Caleb had told her I couldn't have kids. That we were separating. That he and Taylor, would start a life together once the baby was born. But when Taylor got pregnant, he changed. He started talking about giving the baby up. About how his wife still needed a child. About how she'd be doing something noble, something bigger than herself. She was barely out of a toxic relationship before him. She had no money, no support system. She felt trapped. And Caleb knew it. He picked her for the same reason he picked me, vulnerability. But he miscalculated one thing: how far a woman would go once she realized she'd been played. I told Taylor everything. The fake surrogate story. The way he handed me the baby like a trophy. The lies. The manipulation. By the end she was crying. I want her back, she whispered. I didn't think I did, but I do. Not from you, I know you love her. But from him. He can't be around her. Not now. Not ever. I nodded. I'm going to destroy him. But I need your help. Together we made a plan. And I made one call I never thought I'd make. To my old fertility doctor. I needed the truth about my supposed infertility. The nurse remembered me. He even remembered Caleb. Your chart's still in our system, she said after I gave her the date of our last appointment. But, wait, this is odd. I froze. What's odd? There was a long pause. Your file says your fertility tests came back normal. No issues. But there's a note from your husband. He requested we not share the full results with you. Said it would be too emotionally damaging. I'm so sorry, we should have insisted on speaking with you directly. I nearly dropped the phone again. I was never infertile. He was. He faked it. He faked my infertility so he could live out his twisted fantasy. So he could paint me as the broken one, the one who should be grateful for his generosity. The rage that flooded me in that moment was nuclear. All this time I cried alone, blamed myself, felt worthless because of him. Because of a lie he planted so he could control my body, my mind, and now, my motherhood. He had taken everything from me. But now I was about to take it all back. There's a kind of silence that comes just before a storm. The kind where the world seems to hold its breath, waiting for impact. That's how it felt the day I walked back into my home after discovering the truth. My heart was no longer just broken. It was sharpened into a blade. Caleb was in the nursery, rocking Ivy in that same chair he insisted we buy. He looked up, grinning like the proud father he pretended to be. There's my girls, he said like nothing was wrong. She wouldn't nap until she heard your voice. I watched him for a moment. How easily he slipped into the role of devoted husband and father. How practiced the lie had become. She's beautiful, I murmured, taking Ivy gently from his arms. She deserves the truth. He blinked. What do you mean? I didn't answer. I just walked out of the room and locked the nursery door behind me. He followed me into the living room. Hey, what's going on? I turned to face him. You told Taylor I was mentally unstable. That I couldn't know the truth about her baby. You lied to her and to me. His face froze. What? No, I know everything, Caleb. I know she's Ivy's real mother. I know you planned to take her and pass her off as mine. I know you faked the surrogate papers. I know you told the fertility clinic to lie to me. And most of all, I know I was never infertile. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You were the one who couldn't have kids, weren't you? I said, my voice steady despite the fire burning in my chest. You faked my test results because you couldn't handle being the problem. You needed to make me feel broken so you could keep control. You're being emotional, he said quickly. You don't understand how complicated it was. No, Caleb. You don't get to spin this anymore. Not after everything. You lied. You manipulated. You stole her from her mother and you stole motherhood from me. And now you think you can gaslight your way out of it. He stepped forward, but I raised a hand. I've already spoken to a lawyer. And Taylor. We're working together now. What? Oh, don't look so shocked. You chose women who were broken. But you forgot that broken things can cut the deepest. I handed him a manila envelope. Inside were copies of medical records, text messages from Taylor, screenshots of emails he thought he deleted. Proof. He started to shake. You wouldn't take her from me. She's not yours, I said sharply. She was never yours. And soon the world will know it. I walked away heart pounding, but I didn't cry. I'd done enough of that. I submitted every piece of evidence we had. My lawyer, a fierce woman with a heart for betrayed mothers, told me I had a strong case. Taylor and I filed a joint legal case against Caleb. She reclaimed her parental rights. The courts will not look kindly on what he did. Fraud. Medical interference. Emotional abuse. And if we push it, even kidnapping. When the first court hearing came, Caleb showed up with a new lawyer and a pale face. He still tried to spin it, said he was doing what was best for the baby, that he only lied out of love. But the judge didn't buy it. When Taylor testified, nervous, shaking but honest, it became clear. Caleb was a master manipulator who used grief and desperation as weapons. Then it was my turn. I trusted him with everything, I said, voice trembling but firm. And he turned my pain into his playground. He used my miscarriages to make me believe I was worthless. He told me I couldn't have children, and then replaced me in the one role I was desperate to fill. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked shaken. By the end of the week, temporary custody was granted to Taylor while the adoption fraud investigation moved forward. Caleb was issued a restraining order from both Ivy and me. He lost everything. But still something didn't sit right with me. There was one final piece I needed to settle. One final thread in the twisted web Caleb had spun. And I found it when I went back to the fertility clinic. I requested his medical records. With Taylor's help and the lawyers, we pushed through the legal red tape. And there it was. Caleb had been diagnosed with azoospermia years before we ever met. He had never been able to father a child. Not biologically. Which meant Ivy wasn't just Taylor's baby. She wasn't his. She was the product of another affair. Another lie. Maybe even a donor. But one thing was clear. Caleb had built his entire life on a secret he never thought would be exposed. And now that life was crashing down. I used to think the worst pain was losing a child. I was wrong. The worst pain is realizing the person you built your entire life around never truly existed. Caleb wasn't just a liar, he was a fraud, a master manipulator who had weaponized my grief to build a fantasy around himself. And now it was time to tear that fantasy down piece by piece in front of everyone who once believed in him. Taylor and I agreed it was time to go public. Not for vengeance, at least not entirely. But for truth. For Ivy. For every woman who'd ever been gaslit into believing her body was broken while a man hid behind her pain. We contacted a journalist, one who specialized in family fraud and adoption law violations. She listened in stunned silence as we recounted everything. The fake surrogate agreement. The altered fertility records. The forged consent forms. The emotional manipulation. And most chilling of all, the cold, calculated way Caleb orchestrated it all while smiling through our grief like it meant nothing. I've covered some dark stories, she said softly, but this is cruel on another level. The piece ran 2 weeks later. Headline: Husband fakes wife's infertility to steal mistress's baby. Adoption fraud uncovered. It went viral within hours. Our small town turned upside down. People who once praised Caleb as a family man now stared at him with disgust. Neighbors whispered. Friends stopped calling. His job issued an immediate suspension pending investigation. The clinic launched an internal audit that led to the firing of the technician who helped Caleb falsify my records. And social media? They tore him apart. Comments flooded in from women around the world. Women who saw themselves in my pain. Women who'd been told it's all in your head, or maybe you're just too emotional, or he's doing his best. Caleb tried to fight back. He posted a video full of crocodile tears, claiming he was misunderstood, that he only acted out of love, that the full story hadn't come out yet. But the internet doesn't tolerate men like him anymore. They saw through it. And they dragged him for every lie, every deception, every fake smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. But inside I felt something shift. For the first time in years I felt whole again. I wasn't the broken one. I was the one who survived the breaking and stood back up. Meanwhile, the custody case moved quickly now that the fraud was exposed. Taylor, with full support from her family and legal aid, was awarded permanent custody of Ivy. I watched them together, mother and daughter, bonding naturally, effortlessly without deceit between them. At first I worried I'd feel bitterness, that seeing them together would rip something open in me. Instead, I felt peace, because I knew the truth. I knew I'd loved that baby with all my heart, even if she wasn't mine. And I knew I had stopped a predator from building his world on stolen innocence. Caleb, stripped of his parental rights, spiraled. The man who once held power over two women through fear and manipulation now found himself powerless. He was ordered to pay restitution for the fraud, therapy bills, and legal fees. He lost his job, his reputation, his carefully curated life. And as part of the court ruling, he was banned from contacting me, Taylor, or Ivy ever again. A permanent no-contact order. A legal excommunication. I remember the day it was finalized. I stood outside the courthouse, the sun warm on my face. Taylor came up beside me, holding Ivy, who was now babbling and reaching out her chubby little hand toward the sky. We didn't say anything for a while. Just stood there, two women united by betrayal, grief, and the slow, painful road to healing. He never really wanted a family, Taylor finally said. He just wanted control. I nodded. Well, and now he has nothing. And it was true. Caleb had spent years building a web of lies to protect his ego. But in the end, truth burned through every thread. He lost everything because he tried to control women who refused to stay broken. He underestimated the strength of a mother's love, whether biological or not. He thought if he could fake fatherhood, he could fake a legacy. But all he left behind was ashes. I don't know what became of him after the court ruling. I stopped caring. I stopped checking. Because the only life I'm focused on now is mine. My healing. My peace. My future. Ivy is safe. Taylor is healing. Me. I'm learning how to breathe again. How to trust again. How to love again. Not someone else, myself. Because for so long I believed I was less than. Because of what he made me think, what he made me feel. But I'm not less than. I'm more. More than what he did. More than what he stole. More than what I lost. And if you've ever been where I've been, I want you to know, you're more too. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, if you felt seen, or if you know someone who needs to hear this, please like, comment, and share. Your support helps stories like mine reach others who are still finding their way out of the dark. And don't forget to subscribe. New stories drop daily, and you never know when one will hit close to home. But sometimes, the truth is the loudest revenge of all.